I'm Annoushka Dukas, and I've been designing jewellery for 30 years and collecting charms for as long as I can remember. In this podcast, I will be asking a series of extraordinary women to tell me their life story in 7 charms. Welcome to my podcast, My Life in 7 Charms. I'm thrilled to welcome Clare Hornby, founder of ME+EM, to My Life in 7 Charms.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's exciting. I've been really looking forward to this. It's particularly as we know each other anyway.
And you were at the start of the journey.
Well, I know.
To help shape
We'll
it.
come on to talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
So, Claire, your first charm, I love designing this charm because actually every part of it is going to work. So you said a bicycle or an ant. I mean, so I like where they're opposite ends of the spectrum, but I thought, why don't we just combine the two?
Yeah.
So I've designed an absolutely perfectly miniature bicycle with a basket at the front, kind of wicker basket, and all the texture will be in the wicker. It's completely 3-dimensional. It's made of 18-karat gold. The wheels absolutely turn as fast as you can push them. And I don't know what you call that bit, but the bit in the middle where the spokes come out of, what do you call this bit?
The centre of the wheel.
That'll do. The centre of the wheel.
Both as technical as each other.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. The centre of the wheel on both sides has got a little diamond, because I think it'll be really fun as it goes round. In the basket, crucially, is a little tiny black ant carrying a tiny little pearl, and the ant is made in white gold but with black rhodium, and this tiny little seed pearl he's carrying. And I kind of suppose he's a worker ant. But that's the way I've combined this very weird charm, a bicycle or an ant. Okay, well, can you tell me?
Would you like the story behind it?
I'd like to know why on earth I've actually done this.
Anyway, the way you describe the charms is just incredible. They actually come to life as you talk about them. It's quite amazing. So this is the story of my first holiday abroad with my parents, aged 7, and I came from a very loving family in the north of England, and my mother was a primary school teacher and my father was a joiner. So we were comfortable. We didn't have a lot of money, but a very loving childhood. And
any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother,
Right.
Yeah, a younger brother. And we went on this holiday when we were 7, and we ended up in Formentera.
Well, lucky you.
I joke that it wasn't because it was the coolest place on earth and was the sort of new kid on the block of coolness. It was mainly because it was the cheapest place my father could find. And I assure you, when we discovered Formentera all those years ago, it was quite primitive. It was dirt tracks and goats, and we got the water out of a well, and there was no transport, and it was beautiful and bohemian, but there wasn't an awful lot there. In fact, I think we stayed in an apartment without any running water.
Oh, God. Okay.
And so, but it was so exciting. I'd never been on a plane before. I'd never been on a hot beach before. So the visual memories, the smells and the sensory experience of that place has really stayed with me, because it really was such a big moment for us as a family. So we cycled everywhere. Where the ant comes in is there wasn't an awful lot to do, but you went for the beach, and then you came home in the evenings and back to the apartment with no running water, so you couldn't even have a bath. So I sat on the side of the road and just became fascinated with the ants.
Really?
I just remember these ants, and I don't think I'd really ever seen ants before because it rained too much. So I just remember them, which is why I like the fact that the ant's got this little piece in his mouth, the pearl, because that for me symbolises the bread they carried.
Yeah.
And this army of ants and the efficiency of ants and how they built their, mounds and anthills and and how they carried food and how they worked together. And I was just fascinated by them. And I'm not sure kids do that anymore.
Well, they don't have, they're just looking at screens.
Yeah. And it was just, anyway, hence the bike and the ants.
That was complete. Well, that's actually really interesting. And it's quite random. Do you think you learnt anything from the ants in terms of teamwork?
Well, maybe teamwork, right? Maybe just efficiency and never giving up. Because, if one dropped the breadcrumb, a whole load more would come and help. So, yeah, maybe building a business came from watching the ants. Who knows what you take forwards from your childhood.
It was such a random.
Well, you do ask.
Happy holidays, though.
Yeah,
happy
an
times.
amazing family memory. Yeah. In fact, very tragically, 3 months ago, both of my parents died within half an hour of each other on the same day. So actually, these memories are really big right now. And Ian and I did a joint eulogy, and we talked about Formentera. And had I been thinking about this beforehand, I'd have also anyway, it's going to get too complicated. But
what would it have been?
Well, it would have been a well. Because there was a well in Formentera. And then when Ian and I were discussing the eulogy or content for the eulogy, literally the day, you go into complete shock. So you actually start functioning and you don't actually know how you're functioning. But we invited Mum and Dad's best friends round and to discuss content for the service and the eulogy. And my dad told terrible dad jokes.
Right.
And they told this joke about how Dad and a group of his friends had gone to see a national heritage property, English heritage property, when they were visiting us in the countryside one weekend. And there were 3 men standing around a well. And my dad said to them, well. And they all looked at my dad like, what are you talking about? And he went, well. No.
Okay, your next charm is a tennis racket. In fact, it's a head tennis racket.
It's very important that it's a head tennis racket.
I've got that. It's a head tennis racket. So as you can see, I've drawn a tennis racket, quite generic, but absolutely miniature tennis racket. But it's a yellow gold frame, white gold strings. See, where you can obviously the strings you can see straight through. It's got your name actually written on the handle, Clare, and on the end, it's got the head logo, which I'm not going to try and describe. And then it has a little chain to which is attached a tiny yellow tennis ball with lots of texture, exactly as you'd expect. Really, so that you can kind of fiddle with it, because I really like my children to be playful and as playful as they can be. So, talking to the tennis racket, the head tennis racket. You're obviously a very good tennis player. So,
I used to play a lot as a child. I'm not sure I'm not. I didn't play lots of school tennis, which is when I think you become very good at doubles. And sport's a big part of our lives. We're big Arsenal fans, and we play lots of tennis. We ski a lot. We do lots of the girls ride a lot with their father. So tennis was really the first sport that I played outside of school, and I played a lot with my father. My father was very sporty.
So did he teach you tennis?
So he taught me to play tennis, and we originally played against the garage door, which was very unsatisfactory. And then we joined the local tennis club, and actually we managed to get tickets to Wimbledon every year on the ballot. So Mum and I used to go to Wimbledon every year and invariably get rained off because it was before we used to go down on the coach.
Right.
I mean, it was awful. And occasionally you'd see some tennis.
You get tickets through the ballot from the tennis club.
Yes, because actually they do want people who are members of tennis clubs. And of course, if it's an unknown tennis club up in the north of England, not many people are going to go to London. So you're the only person through that tennis club. So we used to always get tickets. So that tennis was I played with my dad. I went to Wimbledon I watched it every summer. We used to have a local holiday called Oldham Wakes, which was a holiday for the mill workers, because of course Lancashire was a big cotton mill industry. And there was a local holiday called Oldham Wakes, hence why we were in Formentera at that moment in time, because there was and I used to watch Wimbledon as a child in Oldham Wakes. Anyway, I was learning to play tennis, and then Dad got me a tennis teacher, and I started playing at the Northern Tennis Club in Manchester, which Grace has now joined, because Grace has gone to Manchester Uni, and I made her a member there as soon as she went up there. So she's now plays there, and I had a tennis coach who had played junior Wimbledon, and I still had a wooden tennis racket, which was okay because Borg had one. And he was my idol. But but then these new modern ones came out, and I can't remember what they're made of now. They're now made, and I longed and longed and longed for a modern tennis racket.
Right.
And there, when I woke up on Christmas morning, was this head tennis racket. And I was that's the best present I think I've ever been. I was just passionate about that sport. You know how you dream as a child and you think you're going to become a professional, and I really thought I was going to make it now with this tennis racket, and I'd be at Wimbledon too.
I know you're a very good tennis player, because I've seen you play tennis. John, my husband, played tennis with you, but you missed out. You didn't play with Harry Styles in this last tournament.
No.
That was a bit of a downer.
The downside of being a working woman.
That is a real downside.
That really is. That might be my biggest miss to date.
Yeah, I think that's right, actually. I almost wanted to take up tennis, actually, at that point. Tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
But tell me about the tennis. So did that... I mean, you must be very competitive. Are you very competitive? I mean, I'm saying that now because obviously... We'll talk about the business in a bit, but do you think that... I
think you are. You just have to be, don't you? I mean, you're competitive.
But did tennis,
I think kind of play? I think sport makes you competitive, doesn't it? Because it also teaches you resilience.
Yes.
It teaches you to fail.
Yes.
And it makes you want to win again. So it's those early ingredients of childhood that I think we don't really understand, but they're all woven into our adult life.
But just going back to that, so when you'd lose a match, what would your reaction be? Would you throw your racket on the floor and do a McEnroe? Or would you, how would you deal with that? Because where I'm really going is, and how do you deal with that now when things go wrong?
Well, I used to cry, actually.
Did you? Yeah.
Because I remember actually I went to play I was having tennis lessons at the Northern in Manchester, and it's a bit like it's a bit like the London version of Queen's.
Yeah.
So it's quite a similar style of tennis club. Yeah. And I remember my tennis coach saying, I think you should go on the Northern circuit. So that's like the younger... and then I really, I realised that this Wimbledon dream was never going to happen. And I was nowhere near as good as I thought I was playing in the local club against my parents' friends.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't cope well with losing that. But in team sports, I was much better. And I used to rally the troops, and really I hated losing. And I used to... I remember I used to vie for who was captain with myself and another girl called Tracy Knight. And the two of us always wanted to be captain of whichever team it was.
So are you, if I asked your team now at ME+EM, do you rally the troops? Are you how do you describe your kind
Yes,
of
you do, don't
style?
you? Because it's all very similar, isn't it? You have, business is full of highs and lows. It sort of picks you up and it drops you back down again, doesn't it? Yeah. And you think you've cracked it, and then you haven't. It's like we all describe it as bringing up a child, don't we? You sort of the first few years are about getting nothing back, and then eventually it starts to walk, and eventually it starts to look after you a bit more. But actually it's constantly throwing you curveballs.
Yeah.
And when you're going through a difficult time, and there are many, and we've all been thrown different challenges through all the different things that have come across our way in the last 10 years. So you've got to constantly rally the troops, because and we always talk about failure and what that means. And then once you've failed, that's going to make you better on the other side. So taking risks, understanding you're going to fail, how do you learn from those, and how do you get better, and embracing all of that. And then as you get bigger in a business, of course, you have to put in lots of process. So then you're constantly changing how you work in order to meet the growth of the business.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's
rallying
so
the troops is all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to come on to your next charm, because actually it's clearly represents ME+EM and the start of that. So the ME+EM, you said ME+EM, trousers, outfit, building. So actually that was quite tricky, because I didn't want to have a full trouser suit. So I've just done a shirt, and I've made it a locket, and the shirt is just got ME+EM on the back. It's on a hanger. So I mean I see it as a white shirt, foundation of the ME+EM wardrobe. I could be wrong about that, but I'm kind of thinking.
No, we're very big on white shirts, because we have the layering shirt, of course.
Yes,
yeah.
which I have got, which I'm just not wearing. But I see it absolutely as that, with the real attention to detail on the cuff, and your lovely buttons put on the cuff. And the buttons open, and inside it just says "Founded by Clare Hornby."
Oh,
Since 2009. I want you to take me on the journey of how you identified this extraordinary gap that you have identified, and what the insight. Just give me a little bit of a.
Well, actually, you were very clever early on when you saw what we were doing on when you identified that there was more in Pyjama Room than Pyjama Room.
Yeah.
And the ethos hasn't changed since Pyjama Room. It was beautiful fabrics, focus on attention to detail, and focus on flattering silhouettes. And that's what you saw. And then you said, and by the way, you seem to have a knack for brand building, because the packaging's beautiful, the logo's all beautiful. Well, you like the photography.
Yeah.
And the listeners of this podcast, Annoushka became my business mentor through the Walpole Luxury Brands of Tomorrow. And you identified something that was there, but you were instrumental in pushing myself and Emma to change the name. Yeah. And I think Emma and I were having debates at the time, because we'd seen there was more opportunity, but by keeping it as Pyjama Room, we were going to narrow the growth.
Massive.
We were going to restrict the growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were going to narrow the appeal. And actually, we couldn't have sold direct to consumer if we'd done Pyjama Room, because you couldn't have had the repeat business that you needed off the back of that. And you actually took the debate away from Emma and I. I remember you saying. And as a result, we changed the name to ME+EM. Yeah. And it was when we put that into logo format that we realised it was a really cool logo. And actually, it was fine. And names become names. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so interesting. I remember why, because at the time I'd just sold Links of London, if you remember.
Yeah.
And actually, what I'd seen is we started doing cufflinks, and there was a danger that we could have got stuck in that one particular rut.
Yeah.
And actually, so it was just, from my own experience, that's why
that's why business mentorship is so important, because you take one experience and help another person, and you shortcutted it for us, Yeah. So that was great. So really, the ethos has never changed.
Right.
And we then grew the business through jersey and knitwear, and we had a.
But sorry to interrupt you, but at the time it was very much about comfortable luxury at home. It wasn't.
No. Well, once we changed the name, we had a bit more scope for growth.
Right.
But we then our strapline was comfortable luxury, as you say, and we didn't really grow outside of beautiful loungewear, travel wear, knitwear, comfortable dresses for quite a long time. And it was only when a designer was helping me at the time, and she said, what about denim? And I said, well, I can't do denim, it's not comfortable. Of course, denim is really comfortable these days. But I said, and then I thought, oh, we're restricting this. So that's when I changed the strategy to intelligent style now and forever. Because
I love that.
What we were doing was getting right into the minds of women.
But I know exactly what you mean by intelligent style, because actually when I design jewellery, my approach is very, very similar. It's quite modular and
it really is
to work together, etc., etc. But for the listener, just articulate a little bit what intelligent style means.
Well, intelligent style is built through this commitment to 4 Fs.
Right.
So the first is flattering. So the right fabrics and the right silhouettes. And it's amazing how many designs start with the wrong fabric. Okay. You know, it's the foundation piece.
Yeah.
Functional, which is very similar to what you do, which is must be multitasking. You must be able to wear it this season and next season. You've got to be able to respin it. So if you're investing in a trouser, we want to be able to respin that trouser or the trouser suit 7 ways so that you can wear it all week. Like the idea that you can pack one suit and take,
and have
one dress and several tops, and you can respin. Flattering, functional, fashion. Yeah. Because we believe that women want to look modern. So it's not that we're a victim to fashion, but we want to be on the right side of the curve,
right?
The trend curve.
Yeah.
And then fair is the overarching, is the gap between luxury and high street. So what do designers charge a fortune for, and what do high street designers cut corners on? Weight of silk, quality of trims, just durability of product. And then you get what we aim for is luxury quality for a really fair price. That's our sustainability as well. So intelligent style is a combination of the 4 Fs. And I absolutely know if we miss an F, I can look back retrospectively and understand which F we missed, and that equals failure. So actually, if you miss an F, you get failure. So there's actually 5 Fs because you got the equation of the 4 to stop failure. So it's actually quite a strategic business. Yes.
Very neat. That is absolute advertising coming in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because am I not right in thinking that you did a lot of needlework and pattern cutting with your mum?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I made my own clothes with my mum and stood for hours in front of the mirror. And I think that's where my eye for where a pocket should go, a seam should go, the shape of a silhouette. She loved making clothes, and we found it very difficult to find clothes that fit me. From about the age of, say, 10 to about 16, 17, we couldn't really find clothes to fit. So we started making our own.
Right.
And in fact, when I went round to mum and dad's house the day after they died, I went into her drawer, and there was the needlework drawer and the little needlework wallet that I'd made at school for my nana. So I must have been like 7. She'd kept. And as I found that, the doorbell rang, and it was a ME+EM delivery.
Oh my God, you're joking.
No. So it's very emotional, that. And then I worked on a shoe stall and sold secondhand shoes, and I worked in denim factories.
Hang on. You worked till secondhand shoe stall. That you were buying the shoes?
Yeah.
Or you were just selling them?
So I had my own stall. So Dad took me down to the market, Oldham Market, at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and we queued for a stall. Yeah. We got the stall. We set the shoes up.
But you bought the shoes from where?
I'd borrowed them from his mate.
Rushing over the shoes bit. I want to know where the shoes are coming from.
So my dad met a bloke at the Saddleworth Golf Club.
Yeah.
And he had a shoe business, but he had all these seconds.
Ah.
And so Dad said, would you like to sell these seconds on the market, and you can split the revenue with him?
Okay, so this is early on.
This is early on. Yeah. Dad was very keen I earned my own money, because remember, Dad Didn't like spending money much. So if we were going to go on nice holidays, Ian and I that's my brother, had to earn our own money, our spending money. So we went and queued for a stall, got the stall, displayed the shoes, and then I learned to track what shoes I needed next. So then I go back to the warehouse, get more sizes of the ones that were selling well. So early entrepreneurship, I guess. Early entrepreneurship.
100%. For God's sake. So all of this was, so actually it's no coincidence we're sitting here talking about the success of ME+EM, because if you look back really, there was a very clear, you conscious or subconscious.
Yes, and don't you do this with what you do with your children? You're going, now, I wonder if that's going to create a business idea. Or I wonder if that, like, how's this little chain reaction of what you do with your life end up where you end up?
I want to take a quick moment to say thank you to our sponsor, Rome. I was recently introduced to this brilliant new skincare brand, and I've got to say, I'm already a big fan. Their clinically backed formulas are smart, simple, and seriously effective. Using the latest biotechnology, Rome pairs the best of nature with groundbreaking science. No fuss, no overthinking, just well-made, purposeful formulas that really deliver. It's honestly changed the way I think about looking after my skin. We're proud to be partnering with a brand that shares our outlook. Authentic, curious, and always pushing for better. So thank you, Rome, not just for supporting this podcast, but for proving that skincare doesn't need to be complicated to be meaningful. So your next charm is, you said, a book or book club. Well, I couldn't do a whole book club, so I've just done a book. So I've just done a book, and this is a locket, and I've drawn it like an old-fashioned book with kind of ribbed spine. I see it as kind of a lovely old-fashioned leather book. It's on the front, it's got a border, and the border little diamonds, and it's just got engraved book club. And it's hinged, and you can open it, and inside I thought you could put whatever your favourite, we could engrave whatever your favourite book is, or it could be a photograph, could be maybe a photograph of your mum. There could be many different iterations, but it's just a perfectly miniature old-fashioned book. So, book club or book.
One of the many clubs.
One of the many clubs, as we said.
I think really the importance of book club is, I mean, my book club's made up of a friendship group who all work pretty much. And I think it's our excuse to get together. So book club has been now running for 15 years.
Wow.
And it's grown and grown and grown. And we've, like any book club, it becomes... It gets planned in 12 months ahead. We all plan our meetings around it. It happens every month. Sometimes we read the book and sometimes we don't read the book.
Book club aside, so this is really about kind of relationships, and I guess a support network, because as we know, when you're working very hard, you quite often miss those friendships at the school gates, at the thing. So those are the sacrifices.
Yes.
So I'm kind of guessing that this is a bit of a replacement for that.
Yes.
Where you can rely on each other, because the lunch thing's really hard, isn't it? It's like, actually, as much as I'd love to come for lunch, I can't really. I feel bad
I don't think I've ever stopped for lunch.
But it's interesting though, because those are the sacrifices that you make as a working mum. Because I think a lot of people think it's all really glamorous and it's all lovely, but actually, when you get home, you're kind of thinking, God, I should have come home hours ago. But when you're in the office, you think, I really shouldn't be going home.
Once you've become a mum, you will never get it right. If you're a full-time mum, you wish you were working, and if you're working, you wish you were a full-time mum, and there's guilt on all sides. I don't think you'll ever get it right. But you're right. If you choose to go down the working mother route, you miss out on a lot of friendships. You're never on the dog walk. You're never at the coffee morning. You're never at lunch. You're never at the... that's the bit you sacrifice until you have your time back again, when your children get a bit older and suddenly you can which is why I think I'm addicted to the club, because I can keep I'm almost making up for lost time in a way.
So this charm really makes me laugh. So this is skis or skiing. There's a bit of a story behind this. So I've drawn the skis literally as two separate skis joined on one bale so that they move freely. They're quite old-fashioned looking fat skis. So I used to have some skis, BBRs, and they were quite fat at the front. But on the back of the skis, one says Johnny, which is your husband, your lovely husband, and the other says Tortin, which is a very famous run in Verbier, which I'm sure you're going to tell me about. And then I've also put the ski sticks on the other side. Again, they move freely. I've done them in yellow, 18-karat gold, and they've got diamond handles. And just for fun, on a chain, I've got a little kind of garnet cabochon heart, because I know the story. But tell me a little bit about these skis.
So I'd learned to ski later in life. So I went on one school ski trip in my teens with my school. But I actually had a friend who I met at uni who her parents had a ski chalet, and actually I picked up learning to ski from about the age of 18, and then continued skiing all through my 20s and into late 20s and then early 30s. And Johnny and I had only just got together, and I had been out skiing for about 4 days with some friends in Verbier, and we'd been going down Tortin, which, as you described, for anyone who doesn't know, is off-piste. It's really steep. It's full of ice and moguls, and once you go down the couloir to get there, there's a point of no return, and it clearly marks, if you're going to fall, don't come down here. But it's a little bit irrelevant because you're there,
you're stuck.
And it says, do not fall, because if you do, it's a disaster. So we'd all got our ski legs. Johnny had been working back in London, and he joined us 4 days in, and I didn't know that he hadn't skied for 15 years, and he'd said he was a good skier.
Well, he would, wouldn't he?
Well, he would, because he was a bloke. And he said, yeah, I'm good at everything. So we all set off, and he didn't let on at all that he had any worries about going down this incredibly dangerous, vertical, incredibly long run, full of deep, dangerous, life-threatening moguls. Yes. And he literally crossed his skis at the top, and he went head over heels, over heels, over head, over heels. And I remember standing at the top, absolutely stunned.
You thought he was dead.
Oh my God, he might have broken his neck. It was so dramatic. It was so terrifying. I mean, he just didn't stop. Hence the sign, do not come down here if you're going to fall, because you do not stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, after he did eventually stop. He got caught between two moguls, and we all breathed a sigh of relief as we as he stood up. And then my next moment, because I hadn't known him very long, was, am I going to get the ick? Because I quite like people being really good at things. I once split up from a boyfriend because I didn't think he was a very good driver.
Oh my God.
So I was thinking, I hope I don't go off him now. Anyway, I guess I guess he was the one, and 30 years later, here we are. And Grace is now 18, and she's doing her. And we've never gone back to Verbier. It's a no-no. We need wider runs. We need safer places. But Grace ends up on her gap year doing a ski season, and she's in Verbier. So we take a really small apartment in the village for the 8 weeks that she's there doing her ski training, or 12 weeks that she's doing her ski training. And we found ourselves back on tour town. And cut to however many years later, 25 years later or something, I fall at the top of tour town. And I don't get off so lightly. And I have a very scary fall. And in fact, I am saved by my daughter, who's done her mountain rescue training the day before. And she actually prevents me from colliding with a mogul field head first. But the reason I fell was, I think my ACL in my knee, the supporting ligament in your knee, broke at the top. That caused the fall. And then as I hit the snow many times on the way down with my skis still on, because it wasn't a bad fall, it broke my knee in a horrendous way. And I had major surgery, and it was very dramatic. And I was helicoptered off the mountain, and everyone was in tears. So we don't like tour town, and that's
don't like that. And luckily, he hasn't got the ick either.
He didn't get the
could have got the ick.
He didn't get it.
Particularly when you ended up on crutches in a wheelchair, having to move flat because you couldn't get around. And I saw you then, so my God.
Yeah.
But outside of the skiing, I mean, Johnny is a titan in himself in his world of advertising. How because you don't work together, but I can only assume that he is an enormous support in your business.
Yeah.
How does that kind of work? Because having come from advertising, having met, I think, through advertising, didn't you? How do you talk about your various businesses? How does it work?
Well, he's an investor in my business.
Yeah.
So we do talk about it, but I try not to talk about it. We talk about it a lot in the beginning, but now I would rather not talk about it because we only end up rowing if we talk about business. Yeah. But he's very, what I love about Johnny is he provides unbelievable clarity to a complex situation.
Yeah.
So if I can't navigate something, he will, even though I don't like the answer, what I've learned to do is go, I don't like that answer, but actually, do you know what? Let's give it the overnight test. And normally the next day I go, damn it, he's right.
I have the same with John. It's so annoying. It's something so annoying, but unbelievably refreshing, I think. But I guess
take the emotion out of it, I think,
take
and
the
complexity out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's...
Unless it's around design.
Yes.
Yes, go on, because I think it's...
Well, I think it's like every author needs an editor. So when you're when you are in the middle of something, or you have been trying to fight a complex issue for a few days, sometimes it's just good to have someone come sweep in from the outside and go, I think it's that.
Yeah.
And he's very strategic. He's a very clear thinker. And in my darkest days of ME+EM, particularly after Emma left, I just wanted to, it was too hard. It was way too hard. And I just couldn't hack it. And he used to keep me going. He was a big rock. And he took a financial risk in being the sort of main angel investor in the early years.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that a little bit, because obviously, just briefly describe that Emma left when you decided.
Yeah,
it became from Pyjama Room to ME+EM.
Yeah,
Emma obviously wasn't going to leave at that point because it was
no,
M.
but a couple of years after that.
Yes. Yeah. So because that was a dark moment. So tell me a bit about that. What the challenges of those really tough.
Well, I think Emma's in my book club. We're still great friends. There's no animosity whatsoever. It was an amicable parting, but I think Emma had other priorities.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was really, really, really hard.
To be left on your own.
Just the business was really hard.
Yeah.
And at that stage, it didn't really show any signs of breaking through. So at the time, I think she made the right decision. Not because it wasn't a great idea and not because we went onto something, just, working capital in the early days is really hard to manage.
Yeah. What was the most difficult part in the kind of journey, the ME+EM road? what are the examples of some of the most difficult times outside of funding?
Getting to profit's obviously really hard because you've got your minimums, and then you'd have enough customers for your minimums. So each factory makes you make X amount, and then PM got enough customers across enough choice. So getting to profit is just that grinding journey of, you know, everyone who joins has to put a tiny bit more money in. And once you get to profit, you feel real, and that's amazing. And obviously then we've all been thrown curveballs from, you know, whatever anyone's political views are. Brexit hasn't been great for businesses like ours. You know, you can't just sell into Europe anymore. Your margin's been eroded, so you have to look further afield. Then you had the pandemic, obviously. It's the most boring answer, but the pandemic was...
But the pandemic was a massive sea change for you, wasn't it?
It was only... we were lucky. We had the weather, and we had a lot of summer dresses. Had we not had that heat wave, it wouldn't have been... And we were good at pivoting. We were very good at pivoting.
So quick to pivot.
We were quick to pivot. And the team were incredible. But, you know, we were at our desks at 7 and we were finishing at 9, and there was nothing in between. And it was constant reimagining on how to run the business and adapting the supply chain around it and adapting the marketing.
But you became very, very, very key to your marketing, didn't you? You and the girls, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
You're not photographing yourself.
Yeah, it was needs must, wasn't it? Like, I didn't want to put myself forward, but, you know, in the end, it was just all bets were off. You used pure instinct. It's all you had, and you fought. And actually, I think that was really good for the girls. You know, the girls were in the middle of exams, so they were working hard. But they could also see what it took for both Johnny and I to save our businesses. And we really bonded over cooking and sports in that moment in time. We were really lucky we had space. I always say that, you know, if you were in the pandemic and you had space, you were really lucky. You know, if you had space, you've no idea what it was like without space. Yeah. And of course, you're trying to bring a company on with a lot of younger people who don't necessarily have that space.
So your next charms, these are rather beautiful, these charms. So 2 trees which stand side by side. So you sent me a photograph of the trees. And they're, apart from being utterly beautiful trees, it's very difficult to know how to recreate this as well as I possibly can, because I know how important they are for you. But the way I've done it is actually I have done it in a frame, and the middle part is like a kind of solid coin, but it's a flattened circle. Like it's really like a coin, but very soft. And these 2 trees are carved. If you imagine when you start, you carve it in wax first.
Oh my goodness!
So that you can get the absolute texture and the leaves of the trees. So the trunks, it's in yellow gold, but very, very textured and a little bit gnarled, where I think trees will have stood the test of time. And then they've got green peridots in the leaves. And we might
that's so clever of you. My first engagement ring was a peridot.
Was it? I think we'll use different shades of peridot, so you get that kind of feeling of the slightly different coloured leaves. So that's very much. And then on the back of this coin are just some little stones. So one is a moonstone. So one's a moonstone because I think your dad's birthstone was a moonstone, and we're going to put a little date somewhere on here. And then your mummy's birthstone is a citrine. So I've put that here. And in fact, around the bezel, we can engrave their dates or their names. And then these are just little tiny diamond stars, because they'll be looking down on you and looking to see.
And it's because that is on
I think the most important thing is that it turns, so the section within the frame spins, because I think it's something that's really playful and is kind of will always make you think about them. So that's what it is. Now, tell me about these lovely trees. I mean, it is an extraordinary thing to lose your 2 parents on one day within half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, Dad had been ill for a long time, but Mum was, fighting fit, and it was a total shock. And I was on the phone to her as it happened. So, but my dad loves trees. I used to plant trees on Saddleworth Golf Course with my dad. He had hundreds of books on trees. He was obsessed with trees. And at our house in the Cotswolds, there are 3 sets of trees. One by the river, and I've now noticed there are 2, one standing together. One near the pool, and there are 2 standing together. But my favourites are these trees, which are visible and lit up at night, and they are, you look at them through the dining room window.
Yeah.
And they are the oldest and highest trees in the valley. So when you go on the walks above, these are the trees that you see.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad loved these trees. And on Christmas Day, or any day that they were in our dining room, those were the trees that we lit up and they looked out at. And we always made they became the sort of centerpiece for Christmas and family gatherings. So now when I'm working from home, I look at these 2 trees and they are Mum and Dad. And I just keep seeing, it's just this pairing, and they symbolise, I guess, them being together for a very, very long time.
But they're looking out for you. They will always be. And I lost my mother when I was 23, and I know that she sits here, and she comments. She's always got a view, but it's very clear that she's there and always with me, always there. And they will always be there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll kind of hear. And I think time gives you a bit more, perspective, because this is only
3 months,
3 months ago. Yeah. On a rather sunnier note, because I happen to know Alan. I love Alan the Dachshund.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've made him in yellow gold with kind of textured fur in the gold. He's got a diamond collar, and for some reason I put a Paddington hat on him because that's why. So I put a Paddington Bear hat on it because it's a bit hard to do the stare. But the Paddington Bear hat is kind of little pavé rubies, just perfectly tilted on him, and he's sitting on this carved cushion, blue agate on the top, with little tassels at the bottom, which move. And on the bottom of the cushion, we've just engraved Alan. So the reason I know about Alan, but the reason I know about Alan for the listeners is because last time I came to stay with you, we were going to a rather smart party. We were changing in our room, and Alan wanders in and does a big shit just next to my bed whilst I'm watching him. Literally. And he looked at me and he thought, actually, you've done that now. And off he went. And John just said, right, that's yours to deal with. Anyway, can you just tell me a bit what Alan is all about?
We went through a tricky time with Maddie, who's now 20. She started vomiting a lot at school, but it was awful. I mean, literally, she couldn't keep a morsel of food in it, but it didn't even go into her stomach. It just came out of her esophagus, and it was awful. And it was mentally challenging and physically challenging. And it went on for a long time before we could get it properly diagnosed. It was partially diagnosed but it wasn't fully diagnosed for about 18 months.
And what was it?
And it's got a condition called eosinophilic esophagitis.
Right.
Sure. And it's an exaggerated version of acid reflux, but it's much worse than that. And it's actually linked to eczema, and it's the reason it's called it's the esophagus bit. It's like you get eczema in your esophagus, but it creates this reaction. It's like a volcanic reaction. So sport became problematic. Friendships became challenging. It was just a really very, very, very difficult time.
It come on very suddenly.
Came on very suddenly. Anyway, then the pandemic. Then we managed to get it diagnosed. This incredible consultant at the Portland Hospital. He became my god.
Yeah, sure.
He interestingly had worked in a hospital in Cincinnati in 1997 when EOE was first recognised as a problem, and that specific form of gastro issue was identified. Right. He knew immediately what it was.
I've never heard of it.
No, very, very rare.
Right.
And of course, then the medication, the diet that she put on, and it kind of solved it, and she got better. But she'd lost her confidence a bit.
Yeah.
And we were out one day, and I said, "Is there anything? What do you think? We need to start getting you out and about, and like what can we, because she was a bit low." And she said, "I just want a wide head military accent."
That was it.
Yeah, that was it. Because I think a puppy represents, a return to, as puppies help conversations and, everyone.
Yes, they break down barriers.
There's a lot. And she was obsessed with them. And I was like, ooh, I didn't understand the attraction of these tiny, strange-looking creatures.
Yeah.
Johnny and Maddie both went, is that one? It's definitely that one. So we went, and then we came back the following week, and Johnny said on the way home, he said, right, I'm over the line on this, they were cute, I'll give you that then. But he said, we're only having it if we call it Alan.
How random. But hang on, he must have had a reason.
I think he'd seen the stare, he'd seen how little and cute and kind of everything about this sort of funny little fellow was, and he just thought he needs a proper name. He needs a good bloke's name.
Right.
That might make when you go, this isn't,
No.
this isn't salt, this isn't pepper or whatever you might call it. This is Alan.
This is strong, Alan.
Does make people.
It does.
Laugh. And Alan has become this. I mean, Alan is a character, as you know. He's a real character, and lots of people now have wired-haired Dachshunds as a result of us having Alan. And we have a friend who has Kevin, and there's many Dachshunds come into our lives as a result of Alan. In fact, I bought my mother a Dachshund.
Oh my God.
Who lived with them and brought. I mean, she said a few days before I last saw her, this is the best thing they ever did for us was bring. And her mother, who died when she was 21, was called Dora. She's called Dachshund Dora.
So you've got Dora and Alan.
Yeah.
You've got Dora and Alan. I love that.
This was Alan is so important because he became the first rung on the ladder to
Healing.
To really healing. He really did start to heal, and then the pandemic came, and then of course we were with Alan nonstop,
24/7.
Yeah, and I owe a lot to Alan.
Well, I think on that very happy note, I thank you, Claire. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's absolutely.
The charms are just incredible. Your imagination knows no bounds. You are a true creative. Very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. But most importantly, so I'm going to make you one to say thank you for coming and spending some time with me. I think I probably know which one it is, but which one would you like me to make?
It has to be this, doesn't it? Is that the one you least want to do?
No, I want to do the one that's going to mean the most to you, because I think what charms and jewellery is all about, it is about memory. It is about what it means to you, what it represents, the time, all of those things are the most important things about jewellery, because looking nice is one thing, but if it doesn't look nice, you're never going to wear it. But I really want you to choose one that it means lots to you, and most importantly,
is that the?
That's the tree to represent your parents. Okay, well, I shall really look forward to that, and we can just talk about whether we put any engraving on it, or we put their birthdays, or perhaps their initials, or because I think to think about for you now, but also for the children or your grandchildren in the future. I think that's really part of what charms are about. You know, charms are all about that. They're all about the memories. So you can have a think about how to do that, because it'll take a few weeks to make it. I've come all the way across the world to deliver your job.
Should I open it?
I think, for God's sake, open it.
I mean, I am going to cry. It's all about opening the box these days, isn't it? I'll try and do it like the influencers. They do it, but it's a little bit more seamless. The chef revealing the food.
Okay, we've got to go that way.
Okay. Okay. Oh wow! Look at that box. Oh wow!
There we go.
Beautiful packaging. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at that. Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, 2 trees, and they're, as you described, leaning against each other. And these are little green savorites, and the diamond's here, and it's spinning so you can play with it and always feel they're with you. And there's a moonstone, they're both their birthstones.
No.
Moonstone there.
Oh my goodness.
And the citrine there.
I'm shaking.
Supporting each other.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is amazing. I am actually really oh, God, that is the most incredible thing.
Thank you for joining us on My Life in Charms. If today's conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own story, begin your Life in Charms journey at anoushka.com or email bespoke@anoushka.com. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to hear more extraordinary stories told in jewels.